Hey, so I'm just zoning out, and I came up with a cool idea, but it probably won't work. Okay, a lot of cool ideas that I normally call cool ideas are cool ideas because they're practical and I thought through the system. This is more of a dream, a very mechanical and involved dream. Okay, so if you have a flywheel system, hold on, I'm trying to remember. There's reaction wheels, and then there's inertial mass um, dampening wheels or something like that. Basically, um, a flywheel where you fight against it to adjust your mass gets less saturated, um, which means that you can adjust more mass. So they used to use them in like monorails and stuff. I think they still do sometimes. Um, Whereas a reaction wheel only really works in space. Basically, it's kind of like when you in video games and the waiter has like a stack of plates and they're like trying not to let the stack fall over. Uh, but then it gets too crazy and then the waiter can't keep up and the plates just fall everywhere. That is a reaction wheel. It gets worn out faster, but sorry, I just realized I'm loud and it's nighttime, so I'm turning the volume down. And I can't remember the name of it, but the difference is a reaction wheel starts and then it stops and it starts again. Whereas an inertial mass dampening wheel is what I'm gonna call it because I can't remember the real name. Is it's always going and then it just like breaks a little bit. And the difference is if you're always going, you have more effective mass. Um, because of physics and stuff. And here's the thing. Um, the thing we're on right now, the Earth, unless you're in space, hi, is pulling us down um, because the gravity is an accelerational field. Um, because that explodes my brain when I think about it, because I'm like, what is accelerating exactly? I like to think of the entire universe as having negative acceleration towards massive bodies, um, like the Earth. Um, so, yeah, the Earth isn't expanding up at you, because that would be a trip. I believe they made a video game out of about that. It was called Sonic Unleashed in the U.S. or Sonic World Adventure in Japan. Um, it exploded. Um, Alternatively, I believe there are people who do believe it's infinite, and so I guess Balloon Earth is the next flat Earth. I hope not. So I haven't gotten to the idea yet. We've just covered some ground. All right, so uh, the flywheel braking system for controlling and balance, right? And the universe's negative acceleration towards Earth. Um, and then the next thing. Because of the universe's negative acceleration towards Earth, if you have a spinning wheel, it precesses slightly. And if you have a spinning wheel on a string, it orbits. And the reason it does that is because it's the same reason that like World War II planes, the ones that used to have only one engine, if you went up, they'd also go to the side. And that's because if you're doing shot put, um, well, maybe shot put's a bad example because when humans ride a bike, um, what you perceive is that when you want to turn this way, you just turn this way, but actually, subconsciously, you kind of go this way and then you bounce that way. Um, Shot put is similar. So instead, if you had like a BB pellet that was magnetic and it was stuck to a wheel that was magnetic, but you could turn the magnet off and you had it spinning. Oh, sorry, spinning. And you let go of the BB pellet. If you wanted it to go that way, you wouldn't let go of the BB pellet here, because even though if you have a circle there, that is the top of the circle. If it's spinning this way and you let go of it here, it doesn't go out. It goes 90. So if you want it to go up, you have to let it go when it's on the side. And that's why if you have a spinning propeller on a one-engine plane, well, more or less and oversimplified, and you try to go up, you also go to the side because you're being deflected a certain amount. It's not exactly 90 because there's like inertia and stuff, and some people turn completely upside down when they're just trying to get in the air. But yeah, so now we've covered all the basic principles, and those are the facts. We're going to get into the crazy now. The acceleration of the Earth's gravity, we all perceive it as a linear force, but I conceive of acceleration. See the crazy? Conceptions are the first step towards crazy. I conceive of the acceleration as cyclical. All acceleration is a circle in my mind, or a curve of some kind. And whatever. All acceleration is a circle. So, sorry. So, the problem that I'm trying to solve is fuel. Rockets. They have to get rid of their fuel and they can't find more while they're in space. They can get solar power, but they can't use electricity as rocket fuel. They have ion drives, but those actually use lightning, which is not electricity. Lightning is actually an energized material. It has electricity in it, but it's not just electricity. That's why fire is magnetic. Fire is actually a type of lightning. Yeah, it is. We classify it differently, but they're both plasmas, and there's stuff in there. It is stuff. It's just highly energetic stuff. So you still need to get rid of stuff to move when you're in space. That's the problem. But I was thinking of a workaround. You see, the fastest path to a location and the shortest path are different. So, with 3 or 4, okay, 3 is for a plane because it's a triangle, 4 is for space because it's a tetrahedron. 3 or 4 automatic yo-yos that like clink together and then they turn on opposite magnets that or opposite like railguns that push each other apart, so they kind of like pop together and bounce apart. You could create an oscillator, but they'd have winches and pulleys in there. So you could have like 2 points here that remain relatively stable, possibly using like an air bladder that makes the yo-yo string thick, like sturdy, so they'd stay at a fixed distance, and then you'd have one that bounces up and down, and it would go higher and lower and higher and lower. But the problem is, the craft would just get lighter. It wouldn't, because for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So you'd be increasing the range of the craft by storing energy in its wavelength. And you'd effectively be making the craft larger, even though in a single moment it's the same like size. I mean, even though in certain moments it's like flat, in other moments it's flat the opposite way. If you've ever seen video of a square bubble, it's only square for a brief period of time, and then it becomes like octagonal, and then it becomes like a rotated square, and then it becomes like circular and octagonal, and then a rotated square again. It would be like that. Um, so yeah, it would be tall, mid, and flat, and it would just kind of do that. But here's the cool part: if we added circular paths to those, right, we could have some take a straight line path back, and some take a curved line path back. And even though we're returning them to their original location, we could add potentially angular velocity, I'm thinking. But it's ill-conceived, so I can't really guarantee that it would work. I am just letting you know that I'm thinking about it because it's cool. And I want a UFO. I'm mad that I don't have a UFO. Okay? If I was a billionaire and I could afford rockets, I'd still be mad that I didn't have a UFO. But yeah, because the fastest path is the how do I put it? So a vector mathematically is two lines, and the fastest path takes into account like the acceleration path. So like obviously the longest, how do I put this? The longest path is just going the wrong way, but the longest path that like fits the no, in a hypothetical situation where you could stop instantly, so that is not the real world. The longest path is just the outside of a right triangle, and the shortest path is the hypotenuse of that right triangle. But in the real world, you're already moving, so if you want to get somewhere, you've got to take that motion into account and then add energy, and you have to like preconceive of how to get from where you are, account for where you're currently incorrectly heading, which could be the opposite way or slightly the wrong way or very the wrong way, and then you have to figure out what's the least amount of change that I can do to change from going the wrong way to going the right way. And the shortest path instead asks, how can I change from going the wrong way to going the ideal way, regardless of energy? So the shortest path requires more energy, and that's the actual difference. If you have the energy to spare, it could actually be the fastest path. The reason it's different is actually purely environmental. So the Brachistochrome curve is not literal in this sense, it's metaphorical. It's the lowest energy path, and then the shortest path is very literal. The reason it's different for things like raindrops or like rolling a ball down a hill is because the Brachistochrome curve on Earth is supposed to be a literal manifestation of the gravitational acceleration of the Earth. So if you drop a ball on the Brachistochrome curve, it is exactly the right angle to give you all of that acceleration and deflected just enough to maximize the difference and get you not going straight down, but going from where you started to where you ended whilst maximizing the gains. But when it's 45, you're just kind of rolling. And when it's straight down, I mean, It's the fastest path if you don't want to go anywhere. Oh, sorry. It's, let me rephrase. If you're trying to go from where you are to the ground, a straight line is the fastest and shortest path. But sorry, my mom's yelling at the cat. Sorry for the jump cut. Jack was pranking my mom. It's currently nighttime, and she's trying to sleep, and he was, like, breaking stuff. I got called in because I'm the Jack Whisperer. Anyways, so we were talking about brachistochrone curves, and, imagine a two-dimensional plane, okay? Gravity is this way, and you want to move a ping pong ball that's falling because of gravity along this plane. It's starting here, and you want to move it here. Okay? You could use a 45-degree angle to convert that energy. That would be the easiest option because it's a simple shape. Okay, so you're starting here, and you want to get over here, so you just do that. Or you can use a brachistochrone curve. Why would you use a curve when you could just use a straight line? That's a good question. It's because gravity is curved. It doesn't look curved, it doesn't feel curved. But gravity is curved because you start out slow and you speed up. But that doesn't happen at a linear rate. It happens like multiplication, not addition. So that is a curve. And so to maximize the leverage you get from gravity, you want it to basically start flat, but only for like a point, so you don't notice. And then in the middle, it's going to be 45. But again, only a point, so you don't notice. And then at the end, it's going to be horizontal, because now it just has inertia. But again, it's a single point, so you don't notice. But then, you use the strength of the gravity and also the equations of a circle, and you find how they, or maybe not a circle, but another kind of curve, and you figure out how to make them talk to each other such that you get the perfect curve for acceleration. And even though when we're talking about gravity, that's also the fastest path because we're talking about moving things with a source of energy that's given to us for free. In another context, it's not just the fastest path, it's also the most energy cheap. So there's shape cheap and there's energy cheap. And those are two different principles. So if we combined shape cheap and energy cheap movement, we could possibly take advantage of imperfections in the friction of the rope to... All energy has to go somewhere. So in an ideal setting, you're right about no matter how we move it, it won't go anywhere. But the world is not ideal, okay? In the universe, pushing is always more effective than pulling. Okay, with ropes, it's kind of opposite, but on a molecular level, ropes are basically hooks. And it's complicated. But, like, that's why explosions are so impressive, but implosions are only as powerful as the ocean around them. Because basically, if you take like a submarine full of rich people, or just an empty submarine, or a vacuum chamber, and you put it in water, it's kind of like winding a spring, but just a little bit. But if you put it in really, really deep water, then that's like winding a spring a lot. Because the water has energy in it, but it has energy that has nowhere to go. So if you open a hole in the vacuum chamber or the submarine, the water moves in really powerful. It's the same vacuum, but the push is harder. So pulling, like pulling on something, or like inhaling, that's just indirect pushing. Um, and that's to show you again that a lot of things that seem equal are not equal. But back to the hypothetical UFO engine, and as a reminder, even skyscrapers have engines. They have pendulums that absorb wind and earthquake energy to hopefully stop the skyscraper from tipping and falling. I mean, nothing is perfect, but it works enough that they still use it. So basically these automated yo-yos, they would have like inertial controls in them like a monorail, but they would also be able to pull on each other, like pull on each other and push each other apart, similar to like elevators or like hydrostatic muscles or whatever. We could even probably use yeah. We could even probably use an electrostatic field for the muscles because so there's another jump cut here, and I said we're going to use air compressors to power the muscles and then contract the muscles. Air compressors on a spaceship. So how an air compressor works is it just kind of like pushes the air into a pressure vessel. So on a sealed container, the container that's holding that pressure vessel shrinks or develops a vacuum, depending on how rigid it is. But because we're talking about robot muscles, we want them to like shrink, and then we push the air into them and they inflate. And these are also like rope cables that the things like drive along. So with that drive system, we could intentionally like bend some or use inertia to deflect and curve away from where we're trying to go. So we could like drive really fast and then tilt the wrong way and then tilt the right way. And we could do that so that we can correct and we would do that so that we can spend energy on like we would turn the back and forth. We'd have the forth, but then the back would like get distracted. So it would wind up spending extra time on the fourth, and then it would move. So we would use angular velocity to distract 50% of the linear velocity. So we have equal and opposite linear velocity, but now one half of it is taking longer to come into effect. And it's spending more time like that and wasting its half on friction. And the friction generates infrared energy, which is a form of light, and sound, which is like diffuse kinetic energy. So we have linear kinetic energy, but then one half is like a laser beam and the other half is like a flashlight. And then suddenly we go from a balanced system to a system that is imbalanced. But unlike an imbalanced wheel, free energy device, the reason I bother thinking about this one is because a free energy device needs to be passively imbalanced, which is literally impossible. Because if it's moving, it's becoming balanced, unless you're giving it energy. But with a, how do you put it? With this idea, it's imbalanced in a different sense. It's an oscillation that in the vacuum of space would slowly deteriorate, because even though space is frictionless, our device has like hinges that creak because it's made by humans. It's not perfect. And even the Earth slows down. The reason it wobbles and the reason the core is hot is because its rotational energy is being converted into earthquakes and infrared energy in the core of the Earth. And all of that is slowly slowing down the Earth. So even in a perfect system, energy still leaks. It finds ways to relax. But this system is we're putting the energy in it. We want it to be constantly being constant, so we have to give it a little. We have to push the swing. But then in addition to pushing the swing at a constant rate, we also make it like do geometry on one half of the swing ride. So it yeah, let's use a swing set metaphor actually. So you have how do you explain it? You have an arch, right? And a swing is hanging from the middle of that arch. And the sides of the arch are like triangles. It's a wedge on this side, and we rotate it this way, and there's an arch. And then in the middle is a swing. Well, when the swing goes this way, the arch tilts with the swing, and it tilts back. It doesn't do... It's not supposed to tilt, so they dig it deep in the ground, and it only kind of like shakes a little, but it does tilt. So on the front swing, it tilts a little, and then on the back swing, it tilts opposite. But if we also have the swing, we had like a second like control point on the swing with like an aerial drone. So while the swing is going, sorry, I'm trying to represent 3 dimensions with 2 dimensions. It's not helpful. While the swing is like swinging back, okay, we don't let it get taut, because as soon as the rope is here and fighting gravity, there's going to be a moment where the swing experiences 0 gravity, and while the swing is experiencing 0 gravity, the pole is experiencing like maximum this way. So if we never let it get that way, and we like fly in from the side with an aerial drone, and there's like the chain of the swing, and we hit it in the middle, and we push it to this side, the swing will go that way, right? And then we grab on and we pull it back. The swing will go this way. And then before the swing gets all the way taut, we then give it enough energy, so we assist gravity. We add extra energy so the swing doesn't slow down, and we push it this way. Now, if you tried that on an actual swing, it would then jiggle every which way. But the thing is, you can get a pencil to stand on its end if you have what I talked about at the very beginning, reaction control system. It's called an upside down pendulum. Upside down pendulums usually fall over, but if you shake them like the waiter with the plates, that I talked about at the very beginning, it will keep the pendulum upright. So, because instead of a person in a swing, we have a device capable of adjusting its angle, and that device has linear velocity because it also has like wheels and it's on a self contained track that can inflate and contract. Now, the swing can stay straight. So you can burn energy on the backstroke and then stabilize on the front stroke. And because you're burning energy on the backstroke, instead of this going creak, creak with each swing, instead it's going creak, and then it goes back and it just feels nothing, and then it goes creak, and then repeat, 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 except if it weren't rooted in the ground, if it were in outer space, instead of going like angular, it would go. So that's my reasoning, anyways. And it's probably flawed. Okay? You can't test it, you can't prove it, and I don't have money to test it, so sorry. But I get bored and I think about weird, non existent UFOs. They're not in the way most fun people who think about UFOs think about them. I want a UFO. And the aliens aren't handing them out, so I had to build a UFO. Or at the very least, design one. So, they probably don't exist. Or if they do exist, they use some kind of exotic high energy technology that enables you to literally use a flashlight as rocket fuel. Which would kind of defeat the point, wouldn't it? Unless they had some kind of like new exotic generator to compensate for that. And some people say they do. But I get my kicks by enjoying UFOs that use old fashioned technology, like ropes and pulleys. And those UFOs probably don't work. But you know what? Being wrong is the same as learning. Okay? It's at least step one. Step two is figuring out why you were wrong. If your ego is so big that you're never going to do step one, then you won't have an opportunity to get stuck on step two, which is the significantly more challenging step. So some people go back to step one and decide to be wrong again, and they do that forever. And some of them don't even realize they're wrong because they don't double check. But I will realize I'm wrong. Hopefully. And if you're a smart YouTuber or TikToker, nah, all the jump cuts I mentioned previously, those are just for the TikTok. I don't like editing, and YouTube allows longer videos anyways. So, love you, Jack. So, yeah. Ugh. I guess there was a jump cut because I dropped my phone. Sorry, my hand's asleep, that's why it's trembling. Here, hand, you can have a break. Alright, so mathematically speaking, you could probably prove me wrong. So you're like a person with simulation stuff, or a person who likes building crazy stuff. Give it a whirl. I mean, the worst thing you'll have is a thing that doesn't work. And we call those sculptures. So Sculptures are cool, right? I mean, I just don't have the money to spend building something like that, or the equipment or know-how. But if you want to see me build something like that, probably too bad for you. But if you know how to build stuff like that and want to see me build something like that, I have enough time to be like a, a learner, a pupil, an apprentice. So, like, I don't have a reason not to learn. Just don't see the opportunity at the moment in front of me right now. Don't know how I would accomplish that. But if someone else knows how I could accomplish that, I will listen. Alright, have a good day, everybody. This is a representation of the craft. I described it to ChatGPT. Mathematically, I'm the one who came up with the math. So, you see, we have those tetrahedrons I mentioned earlier. When you have two and they're regularly shaped, and when the bottom of the pyramids touch and it creates like a little bowl, that's called an octahedron. Okay, we're looking at an isometric view of an octahedron. I wanted a 3D panorama, but beggars can't be choosers. So these red X's represent the relative position of like muscle flexation controllers. So each one of these would have an air controller, an air compressor for inflating and deflating the muscles, an air compressor and a winch system for also contracting the muscles with the winches. It would be like an air bladder, but also with rope wrapping around it concentrically so it could pull it in or push it out. And then it's basically an octahedron, but with two antennae. And each one of these orange lines is a flexible tube that you can control kind of like an octopus arm. So with that, this whole thing is a flexible octahedron. And each one of these lines is capable of curving and acting like a spline. So with that, and then also with like little like elevator robots that are allowed to like freely traverse it and like do funky stuff, and those elevator robots act like monorails and have like reaction wheels on them and stuff. That's the spaceship design I was talking about. Although I don't know if it could actually work as a spaceship or if it would just be like a really weird non-functional kinetic sculpture. But yeah, so that's what we're looking at. Let me save it, and then we'll color in the faces. Okay, so some of you are just kind of human, so the perspective might be a little disorienting, but if I help, it should be okay. One blue. There. And the top one, red. We shall make the back one green. That's the back bottom one, and the back top one, teal. Okay, we'll make the top side one yellow. And the bottom side one, purple. No, not purple. Slightly different yellow. Lime green. No. Orange. There. There. We'll make this one blue again. And we'll make the bottom one teal again. Or maybe like ice blue. Okay. There you go. So that's the tetrahedron. And then, yeah, we've got like basically like little arms that it can move around. You can like pull them in and push them out, and then like the inertial mass points can go on there, and they can cause it to precess in different ways, and then it can expand and contract in all of the spatial directions, including outside of its usual bounds. So that's the basic idea, but like I said earlier, it's probably a non-tenable idea, meaning it makes you feel smart. It makes me feel smart, but it doesn't actually have the ability to produce results. Who knows, though? Still pretty to look at. So, yeah, you can think in fourth dimensions. In four dimensions, that's all. Because people always be saying that you can't. But those people, they're buzzkills. Be the fourth dimension. Sorry. So yeah, that